to today's Future View on Authentication Day at the Good Intelligence Digital Trust World 2021. My name is Alan Goode, CEO and Chief Analyst at Good Intelligence, and I shall be your host for today's Future View session. I'm joined by Dr. Rolf Lindemann, VP Products at Nok Nok, where he will share his vision of the future of authentication. Dr. Lindemann has been at the center of the passwordless movement for many years and has been instrumental in developing the FIDO standards and ensuring all the big technology platforms, Apple, Microsoft, Google, support FIDO. Dr. Lindemann is responsible for the development and strategy of the company's products and solutions, bringing more than 20 years of experience in product management, R&D, and operations from the IT security industry. His deep knowledge of security markets and technologies. Dr. Lindemann is one of the leading experts in FIDO and has been a frequent speaker at industry events. Prior to Nok Nok Labs, Rolf Lindemann worked as Senior Director of Product Management at Symantec, where he was responsible for research and product strategy on device authentication in smart grids and mobile networks. Before Symantec's acquisition of TC Trust Center, he was Executive Director, Product Strategy at TC Trust Center. Named to that position in 2009, he was responsible for analyzing market trends and aligning the overall product portfolio to new market opportunities. Dr. Lindemann received his PhD from the Technical University in Hamburg-Harburg and holds a master's degree in electrical engineering. Thank you, Rolf. Over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending. Today, we are going to picture authentication in 3 acts. Act number 1, the legacy. Act number 2, the possible, and act number 3, the road ahead. Authentication is a front door to digital services, meaning all of our customers are forced to walk through that door before consuming our services, every time. In the physical world, we focus on making this front door very inviting, nice looking, frictionless to enter, but robust enough to protect our goods during the night. In the digital world, we have room for improvement, and this improvement is our focus today. Act number 1. Today, in the digital world, we typically think authentication as sending passwords to servers, sometimes combined with OTPs, meaning we send a secret from some computers to a server. And in the background, we often perform device fingerprinting to heuristically determine whether we think the password or OTP is provided by the user's device and not by some man in the middle. Or even ask our users to prove that they are not a robot. Very annoying, by the way. Why do we humans get the friction and not the robots? With these legacy approaches, the typical front door looks more like this, not very inviting. And even though it might have 2 locks, it still isn't secure enough. Additionally, we often run device fingerprinting on customers' client computers. In the digital world, your customers don't notice that as prominently as in the physical world yet, where you have to open, right, and put your bags through a scanner. But platforms are making this fingerprinting harder step by step and sometimes even notify users about that. So the perception is changing and your users don't like this kind of friction. And device fingerprinting is not robust under attack. The information your app can harvest could be harvested by any app and hence could also be replayed by a fraudster. And such kind of attack has already been seen in the wild. Some criminals collected such digital fingerprints and sold it on the black market. No surprise that this leads to authentication issues. The most apparent issue is the one with the user experience. For session authentication use cases, companies often see a success rate of 80 to 85% when using legacy 2-factor methods, meaning failure rates are approximately 15%. Failed authentication attempts and slow authentication lead to user frustration and sometimes even to lost customers. Legacy authentication methods in the payment context often lead to cart abandonment. Sometimes OTPs are used there as well. As a result, 13% of 3D secure payments are lost worldwide, according to a Reveille study. In the payment space, device fingerprinting is also often used. But as a probabilistic method, it sometimes leads to false positives. According to the Novarica Group, the US false decline impact in 2019 was 370 billion and growing by 10% annually. Another problem of legacy authentication is fraud. More than 8 billion passwords have been stolen from servers. The average phishing success rate is 11%, And 57% of all organizations have experienced a mobile phishing incident. In the payment context, fraud leads to significant card not present fraud rates, meaning payments that are authenticated with legacy technology. This type of fraud is 3 times the card present fraud, because online payment authentication is just not as secure as the offline payment authentication where the card is present. So let's get to the second act, the possible. Not every company wants to be the first to deploy new technologies. Typically, the following groups are distinguished: the innovators, early adopters, early majority, etc. So let's focus on a new technology that already could be used instead of the legacy technology with all the disadvantages we have seen. Let's look at the possible. Nok Nok is a co-founder of the FIDO Alliance and offers an authentication solution that is based on the cryptographic possession factor and provides passwordless authentication. Using our technology, you authenticate using an authenticator you own, plus something you know, like a PIN, or something you are, like a fingerprint or a face. It's up to you as a user to choose what modality and what form factor you prefer. Today, most devices already come with an authenticator that is built in. We call it a platform authenticator, like Android and iOS smartphones, tablets supporting fingerprints or facial recognition and a device PIN, or Windows and macOS laptops. They could also support facial recognition and of course a device PIN as well in the case you don't like to use biometrics. Remembering a device PIN doesn't lead to cognitive overload, other than 1 password per account times 70 to 80 accounts that we have on average. So in total, more than 4 billion devices can also already support FIDO authentication today. And we support this new authentication method for smartwatches as well. The smartwatch plays a different role for users than smartphones or tablets. They are primarily being used to have important information available by turning your wrist, whereas smartphones and tablets are being used for triggering transactions. But there's already a need for robust authentication on smartwatches to access sensitive information. With our approach, you can standardize on one authentication approach across all your digital channels. In addition to the platform authenticators that are an integral part of the device, there are also authenticators that come as a dedicated hardware, so-called security keys. They support a button press to check whether some user is present, or a client PIN, or even a fingerprint for user verification. Those security keys can be connected to any device, meaning you can authenticate on your PC today and then tap the security key to your smartphone the next day to authenticate. And the important thing here is that the security key's life cycle is decoupled from the life cycle of your other devices. So replacing and bootstrapping new devices becomes easier. And of course, you need to use these new authentication methods. And it can be invoked through native apps and web browsers already today, meaning you can provide the same convenient and secure experience in the web application that you provide in your app. And even better, you can share the same authentication credential between your native app and your web application. With strong and convenient authentication being available in browsers, you can make the user experience in the web application very similar to the one in native apps, and hence reduce the revenue and engagement gap between the both app types. A growing number of consumer services have already deployed FIDO. For example, NTT Docomo in Japan, T-Mobile in the US, Verizon, Intuit, BBVA, MUFG, and many others. These companies experience quantifiable benefits, increased sign-up conversion rates, for example, 10%, as users are not asked for a new password and other unnecessary information, paired with a reduction in sign-up time by 50%. And at the same time, increase of sign-in success rate by 16%, paired with a reduction of sign-in time by 78%, meaning sign-in is now 8 times faster than it was before. And at the same time, reduction in account recovery, 99% up to, and all customers report a reduction in fraud, meaning account takeover. These numbers are real measurements provided by Nok Nok customers that have deployed our technology. So with our approach, better authentication than passwords and OTPs is not only possible, it is already practical today. Let's get to the third act, the road ahead. Many companies have deployed our great technology so far, but that doesn't mean that we cannot further improve it. And here are some focus areas for additional improvements. As we have seen, security keys have an interesting characteristic in addition to their security. Their life cycle is independent from the life cycle of your smartphones, tablets, and laptops. So you can securely bootstrap the platform authenticator on these devices when you replace that device. Enterprises can give those security keys to their employees easily, but unfortunately, most consumers don't have them, nor do they want to carry them. But 2.8 billion credit cards are used in the world, plus the debit cards, of course. People already have and carry this kind of token. Wouldn't that be great to use your banking card to authorize payments on your smartphone, elevating the security to a card from a card not present transaction to a card present level? That allows users to securely bootstrap new devices using an internet-enabled banking card. This is something we have announced together with our partner CompoSecure recently. Another focus area is ability to migrate or even synchronize credentials from one authenticator to another. So let's assume you have registered multiple credentials on the platform authenticator of your smartphone. Now you get a cool new phone. Average smartphone life cycle in the US is 2 years, or you lost your phone and want to replace your phone. How could you then get access to your existing credentials on the new phone? A concept to synchronize credentials of a platform authenticator from one device to another device of the same device family is already in the works. The third area of focus is ability to use existing devices with platform authenticators similar to a security key. Today, you can use a security key to connect it to any device, but there's no FIDO standardized method today to connect a platform authenticator to another device. So today, that means we use out-of-band technologies like push notifications or QR code scans for that. But we are also looking into ways to directly connect your platform authenticator to other devices as well. For example, to directly use the credentials on the smartphone or smartwatch for authenticating a session on your laptop. The great thing about this technology is that it benefits from incremental platform enhancements over time without requiring you to completely change technology. With that, you can get started today, as you can already achieve a lot of great results with the technology that is available today. Remember the great results from existing deployments that we have shared: improve sign-up conversion and sign-in success rates, reduce sign-up and sign-in time, etc. The technology is future-proof, meaning it will support new use cases and new enhancement in platforms as well. And one more, share this. It is not a secret that you can improve authentication. The more people know about it, the better. Let's spread the word and make the digital world a better place. Thank you for your audience today.
Thank you, Rolf. Let me just quickly get my my camera back. When I say quickly, I mean quickly. Too much friction there, I think. And that was a very interesting point that you made about friction, because someone who lives within Europe, and the UK is still in Europe, but not within the EU, but it's still bound by PSD2 SCA rules and regulation, is that I'm increasingly seeing more friction in the payment channel. So majority of transactions that I do on a range of cards and payment methods, I'm either being sent an OTP via SMS, or I have an app that generates that OTP, and it's still a very clunky experience. So for me as a consumer, it seems to me that PSD2 SCA has made it worse, has kind of spoiled that kind of.
Yeah, I think that observation is correct. Yeah. The truth is that there is no need that it has to make it worse, right? This is just apparently let's say the compliance teams have had control, right, for PSD2 deployments initially in many financial institutions. And as a result, they have been focused on providing a single compliant solution, which, as you mentioned, is either the SMS OTP or the push notification to a banking app you need to install today, which doesn't really lead to a great user experience. However, what we can do and what really changes the picture is to use FIDO authentication in that space to provide strong customer authentication through a single gesture. In the same device and on the same device, you do the main transaction, meaning if you are on your tablet, there's nothing preventing you, in theory, right, from a technology perspective, to just use the platform authenticator on your tablet to approve the payment, because the security is the same. If you use your tablet or your smartphone, doesn't matter, right? It doesn't make a big difference, but it's so much more convenient, right? So it's much better to use that approach with our technology on smartphones, on tablets, on laptops, to stay in the channel for the user and avoid the, oh yes, now I need to take out my phone from my pocket, right? And which adds the friction. And we are seeing these numbers, meaning there is the card abandonment rate that we are seeing today, the 13% that I mentioned, right? That is a result of all the friction people are adding, and there is no need to add that friction. We can make it more convenient, and we can increase the conversion rate back again, which is, in my opinion, the great news to the merchant and the payment world, right? That SCA does not have to be the friction, right? It's only if you see the world through the lens of you do one factor as one step and then the other factor as the other step, then it leads to the friction. If you combine two factors in a single step with our method, it becomes very convenient and very secure at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. And for someone who's, as an analyst who's been covering authentication for many, many years, we first published a report looking at smartphone authentication back in 2009. So it is an evolution. So if you're talking about payment, online security, and banking security online, you know, we are transitioning. I still use a token, a TOTP token, for accessing the bank, but that's being transitioned away. So banks are transitioning away from hardware tokens to software tokens, and some of that's either an authentication app or that's delivered by SMS. And I think the next step is to kind of maintain fraud levels, meet SCA kind of tech regs, and to the next one is to improve user experience. Is like a FIDO, is a passwordless solution.
Yes, and we are already seeing financial institutions that have deployed our technology, right? Like BBVA in Spain, like Intuit in the US, right? And they have great progress, right? They see all the quantified benefits that we spoke about and tell us, this is great, right? This is what we wanted to see, all the increased conversion rates, reduced friction, meaning sign-in times and sign-up times for the users.
Yeah, definitely. So I have another question for you, Rolf. Some people think passwordless is less secure than other authentication methods, and we were mentioning about tokens just now. Why is it more secure?
So today people sometimes think that it's less secure because the perception is two factors. Now I do two steps. That seems to be more secure. Reality is different. When using legacy authentication like passwords and OTPs, a server receives a secret from some computer. But more than 8 billion passwords have been stolen from servers already. So it's better to not store secrets on the server. Number two, users don't know whether a dialogue that is asking the user for a secret is presented by a legitimate app or not. Right? And this is exactly how phishing attacks work today. And phishing attack is the number two, right? Stealing passwords from servers, number one attack. Phishing attacks is number two. When you open a link and your browser shows some page, you can't look at the page and tell from the images you see on the page and the structure on the page whether it's legitimate or not, right? This is a reason for the success rate of phishing attacks, right? You will just be happy and enter your passcode, right? The OTP or the static password. But if the attacker served that page, right? In that case, the attacker will own the authenticated session and can do what the attacker wants to do. And this is where our FIDO-based technology works differently. The secret stays inside the authenticator. It's protected by the authenticator, and it's not sent to the relying party server. The authenticator just creates a response, right? It proves and uses the secret to prove that it has access to the private key. And the system automatically manages multiple secrets, one per account, right? The thing we can't do with passwords really is remembering all the different passwords and remember which password to use for what account. Now, in our case, the system manages that automatically. So it becomes much more convenient for the users, more secure because the principal approach is a completely different one, meaning we elevate the security to just a different level here. Plus, we make it very scalable for users, right? They have choice now. They can take the authenticator they prefer, meaning either the PIN or the biometric. And the authenticator form factor they like either a security key or a smartphone with all that. So we make the security better, we make the usability better, and we give users choice.
Yeah, and I saw some figures from Google, because Google have adopted FIDO for employees, and they're using, I think it's either the Uber key or the Titan key, and they've eliminated, or the claim is that they've eliminated phishing attacks and man-in-the-middle attacks.
Yes, and this is one of the, right, to see real numbers on fraud reduction is difficult, right? Because companies typically keep it secret. Yeah. Google has published that number, and they talk about 0, right? Meaning this is not a slight reduction by 10% or 5%. No, it's a reduction by almost 100%, right? Which is significant. It might change, right? There is no 100% security ever, right? Yeah. Once the attackers focus on that technology, we might see something, but not to the scalable level we have today. And this is a big difference, right? As opposed to talking about 1 or 2 or 3%, what we do with most legacy technologies, right? All the band-aids we have today. Now we have something which really brings it to a different level, which changes the game, right? The rule of the game for the attackers. There is no secret on the server. Stealing something from the server will not help you, right? Phishing doesn't work. So you have to focus on other things which are much less scalable and with that, not attractive from an economic perspective for attackers.
Yeah, totally agree. So we have a lot of, in our audience, we have a lot of people responsible for authentication, responsible for deploying authentication, and they may be using existing solutions, and they may be thinking, I don't really want to, change the plumbing. So what does it take to implement it, and would a user need client software?
Yeah, that's a good one, right? Because in the past we had that, yes, you need to install this driver for that piece of hardware I had, right? That was the typical situation in the PKI world, whatever, 20, 30 years ago, right? Now we have created, or we are one of the co-founders of that alliance, to ensure that the software stack is already part of the devices, right? So we put it in the browsers, meaning all the browser vendors added that, right? But we made sure that this is a standard which can be adopted by the platforms, the browsers, and the operating systems. And this is where we are today, right? It's already there, meaning what you need to do, you just integrate the FIDO server and an app SDK in your app or in the JavaScript, right? To make it easy to use that and abstract away the differences on the different platforms, the different browsers, right? So it's very easy for you to integrate and add, and then have all the benefits from the security and the usability.
Yes, and to concur with what you said about the PKI, I was there 15 years ago when I was at Schlumberger Cards with deploying PKI-based authentication on smart cards, on crypto cards, and it was an absolute pain in terms of deployment, in having to kind of install loads of drivers and to ensure that the certificate chain of trust was able to be validated. So yeah,
and today even
it's a big thing.
Yeah, today if you talk to customers, right, many tell us that even the native app is only being installed by, let's say, 40 to 50% of the user base, right? It's not 100%, meaning we are not talking about a third thing you need to install, like a driver, right? People won't do that.
No.
Right? They are not even installing your native app necessarily in all cases, right? Sometimes it's half, right? So the browser support, in my opinion, is really key, right? So we need to make sure that the technologies we use are practical for the users, and that includes the browser technology chain.
And even Apple Safari, you know, that's a big one, yeah.
Yes, Apple joined the party, right? Google joined the party, Mozilla has joined the party, Microsoft joined the party. So everyone is there and supports FIDO, and I think that's really a great achievement.
So, you know, we've been throughout the day on some of the sessions we've had earlier on, we've been talking about, you know, passwordless. What does it actually mean? And we've done a little bit of study in this as well in terms of, you know, what is truly passwordless, and sometimes, you know, you can hide the password, so you can use some sort of, you know, cryptographic front to kind of, you know, still use the password, make it available. So how realistic is it? And each year, you know, next year is going to be the death of the password. How realistic is it to deprecate the password entirely?
So I think it's very realistic, and we have customers which have already done that, but it will happen over time. This is typically not I do one phase and then the password is gone, right? All of our customers have reduced the reliance on passwords, which is a big step, right? And brings already many quantifiable benefits to the table, right? Like the reduced login time, right? All these kind of things. Some have also some large-scale deployments have also allowed their users to go without any password, meaning either deprecate the existing one or sign up with a new one. In that case, you gain additional benefits, right? And the additional benefits are typically you improve the sign-up conversion, right? Because asking for a password is or creates pain for the user, right? It's which password do I choose today, right? And, and where do I write it up? And is there a password manager on this device that I'm using now, right? And when I sign in, is it the device which has that password embedded? So you can remove that friction by deprecating the password. So what we are seeing is that it's typically a three-phase process. Many customers that we have start with a mobile-first strategy, meaning supporting passwordless, not deprecating the password, but supporting passwordless in addition, right? Having the password as a fallback on mobile apps only. In a phase 2, they expand that to native web, right? Meaning all the web applications through the browser. They support that as well, beyond just the mobile app. And in phase 3, they deprecate the password. And this seems to be the path to success, right? This gives them enough time internally to understand what it means to go without a password, because the password in some way is deeply rooted in the way we think security and authentication today. And this needs to change. And they go with these 3 phases, and in the end, they get all the benefits. But very important as well, you get benefits in each incremental step. Right? So there's always a business justification for a phase, which is important. Otherwise, you couldn't convince an organization to go there.
Yeah. Can you share any results they're having?
Yes. So by just reducing the reliance on password, you reduce the fraud, right? Account takeover rates. You increase sign-in speed, and this is factor 8 that we have seen in our real deployments. You improve the sign-in success rate by 16% in our deployment, where each percent point already is worth millions of dollars, and it's hard to achieve today with legacy technologies, but with it really jumps up, and a significant reduction in account recovery requests. So one customer saw 89% reduction after just 3 months in the deployment. Another one saw 99% reduction in password reset. So it's really great benefits just by reducing the reliance on passwords. In the last phase, right, with the passwordless sign up, we saw sign up conversion being increased by 10%. Again, right, 10% more sign up means 10% more customers, where each percent point is worth millions of dollars, right, typically to those large deployments. And that is paired with a 50% reduction in sign up time, right? So you don't, there's a reason why the conversion goes up, right? It's faster, it's less friction for people, so they are happy to continue that path. They don't feel annoyed by being asked too many questions, right? And this is I think it's great to see, and it's also great that our customers were willing to share those numbers.
Yeah, that's really good. So what would you think, what are some of the challenges when moving to passwordless?
So we have seen some customers taking a very tactical approach, right? So you don't need necessarily use our technology to call it passwordless, right? Some people would just say, okay, I send a push out of band push notification to my banking app, right? And then I'm done. But this is typically a dead end, right? It's a tactical approach. Yes, you can call it passwordless, but it doesn't give you all the benefits. And once you want to replace a need for another device for using that smartphone, if you are on the tablet, right? So if you want to get to the next level, you have to completely replace that technology with something new. So that's really a dead end. And that's so these proprietary technical approaches. The second thing we have seen is that some people don't consider the whole user journey, right? They just look at one point and say, okay, it's great, and let's use a fingerprint sensor, right, to somehow cache the password, which also is a very technical thing in the end. But if you do not look into at the whole user journey, like what does it mean if you register a new device, and how do you manage the policies to do so and encourage the users, you're missing many important points, and that reduces the success rate, right? And the third thing we have seen is that some companies, because it's so cool, that new technology, right? They start a science project and do some research and try to reinvent, right? Everything we do it ourselves. And we have seen that companies using an experienced partners had more success, right? Shorter time to market, more stable and better accepted solution, because the first attempt is often a trial and error, right? If you do something the first time, it's more like a science project, right? And that's always the case. And if you do it multiple times, you get much better, and you learn what it takes to replicate the success, right? And so going with an experienced partners, you are not in the steep learning curve, right? You are getting access to someone which has done that a couple of times with success and can tell you where the pitfalls are and how to navigate through that to make it a quick and a successful deployment.
Excellent, thank you. So thank you, Rolf, for sharing your insight with us today. That was really fascinating. And if anybody out there wants to kind of follow up, please get in touch with either Rolf or myself through kind of usual channels, LinkedIn, email, Twitter, etc. So I would like to thank our audience today for tuning in to this session with Nok Nok. This concludes Good Intelligence Digital Trust World. Over the last 3 days, we have explored the latest trends and technology for authentication, biometrics, fraud and security and identity. I hope you have found the event of value. I'd like to thank all of our expert speakers and panelists for sharing their insight and wisdom with us, and the delegates, you, for tuning in. I hope you can join us for Digital Trust World 2022, that is scheduled to take place between Monday the 3rd until Thursday the 6th of October 2022. Thank you and stay safe.